Hello, I'm Ty Mitchell, and today I want to talk to you about your hands. Your hands are such an important part of communication with your horse. And you know, there's several things when you're communicating with your horse. You want to use your legs, your body, and your hands. But our hands can be our most damaging form of communication if we're not using them right. And there's a lot of people that have good hands, but inadvertently they don't realize that they're making contact with their horse for example, in a barrel run, leaving a barrel. A lot of times people go back to two hands too quick, and if you'll watch your video, that horse's head is up in the air, and that's little things like that. And you know, when I'm exercising, I feel like it's important to have a practice bit that I'm doing my slow work in. Typically in a practice bit, I'm looking for something with some gag. I'll use an O-ring. What I have on today is a chain gag. It's a short shank chain gag, and it really gets a horse to bending and flexing. It's soft. If you're riding a combination bit, anything with a rope over the nose or a hackamore, I'd recommend during the week coming back and using something like this. It's fairly light, and it doesn't aggravate the horse, but it will soften and supple your horse up. Now, with that said, a bit is only as good as your hands are, and we have people come to the clinics and they're coming for a bit change, and a lot of them need a bit change, but a lot of them, by the time we get their hands where they're communicating with the horse in a positive way, their bit is fine. And so one of the basic things to think about with your hands, and this, a lot of people overlook this, but it's important. Anytime we make contact with a horse, take the slack out of your reins. And one step further, before I make contact with that horse, I'm going to use my leg. If I'm pulling on this left rein to turn to the left, I'm going to squeeze with my left leg and give him a little pre-cue. And little things like that will keep your horse lighter in the mouth. A lot of people have long reins, and you'll hear people say, well, I'm heavy-handed, so I want a longer rein, that way I stay out of the horse's mouth. Well, that's good in theory, but if your reins are too long, you got a lot of slack. And everybody knows if you have a lot of slack and you pop it, or you're in a run and you take that slack out all at once, that's going to be hard on that horse's mouth. And that's where you get some inconsistencies or get a horse anticipating, little things like that. So if you can imagine a box right over this horse's withers, I want to try to minimize my hand movements. I want everything right over this horse's withers. Now, with that said, when I go to make a circle, I'm going to keep my hands right in this box. And when we make a circle, we want this horse's back end to follow the front end, especially on a barrel horse. I will do some rollbacks, but the difference between a rollback and a turn, when I'm making a barrel run, I want my horse to be round and moving forward. Now, hand position is important. Right now, my hand I'm pulling towards the withers. I've got this horse bent. He's round, a barrel is round. A lot of people, and especially 15, 20 years ago, had more of a stiffer turn. It was more of a rollback. And the difference between a round turn and a stiff turn, I'm going to demonstrate it with my hands. I'll go from, right now I'm pulling towards that saddle horn. If I pull out with my hand, I'm changing this horse's motion. Now, that's not necessarily right or wrong, but every horse is different. Some horses are real bendy, so I may have to ride with a little more outside rein, and some horses are stiffer. So depending on your horse, one thing I would have you do is test your horse to know what kind of style he is. Just walk a circle one-handed, bring your hand to the withers or towards the saddle horn, and if he is staying round and moving forward, that's probably what you need to do in a barrel run. Now, on the different horse, if I'm doing this, if they feel like they're moving their shoulder away or running that shoulder, then I'm going to move my hand. I'm going to change my hand position. Whatever it takes to get your horse to tracking when you're doing a circle, you need to figure that out. And it varies on different horses. You can't say you'll do the same thing or have the same hand movement with every horse. It doesn't work that way. Horses are just like people, and they respond differently to different kind of movements, different kind of pressures. And so if I'm going around the barrel, my job is to put my horse in position. It's his job to turn. If I put him in position, I shouldn't have to do a whole lot with my hands. When we have the clinics, first night, I'm watching people warm up, and you'd be surprised how many horses cannot lope a perfect circle. And when I say a perfect circle, I mean when you're loping your circles, whether it's a 20-foot circle or a 60-foot circle, when I'm doing a circle, I'll try to pick out that day. I may do a 50-foot circle one day. I want my tracks to only be about 2 foot in width. In other words, if I lope 15 circles, I don't want it to be any wider. I don't want my next circle to be in a different place. I want to try to keep it in the same place. And that teaches your horse consistency. And a lot of that goes back, the reason I'm talking about your hands, a lot of people are inconsistent with their hands. So knowing what it takes to manipulate or move your horse, knowing your hand position on that particular horse is important. Now when I'm doing circles, at a trot or a lope, I will be two-handed. Unlike in a run, when I'm turning a barrel, I'm going to be one-handed. But when I'm practicing, I'll use my inside rein to tip this horse's nose in, and outside rein to help keep this horse collected. Inside rein controls the bend, outside rein helps control the rear end. So what I'm trying to do is move this horse forward with his nose slightly tipped to the inside, and I'm keeping that forward motion with a slight bend in the body. And that is important. A lot of horses are right-handed or left-handed. Barrel horses have to be ambidextrous. So you want to get them to where they're equal on both sides. So finding or recognizing what side your horse may be the weakest on, you want to spend twice as much in that direction doing circles. Get them loose and limber. Something else to think about with your hands is be soft and subtle. When you're making a run, your adrenaline's pumping, and we tend to be overreactive with our hands or our body or our legs. So when you're making a run, you want to try to slow things down in your mind. I'll see a lot of people that'll lope or go 3/4 speed through the pattern, and their hands are perfect. When you say go make a run, then their hands look like they're trying to keep up with their horse. Nothing changes there. You may get to that barrel quicker, but the way your hands don't need to react different. Your hands don't need to be quicker. So a good rule of thumb, take the slack out of your reins before you apply pressure. Don't pop your reins, but take the slack out, tip that nose in. And this applies to any type of riding. You know, when you're talking about stopping a horse. When I stop my horse, I don't sit down and pull at the same time. I'll sit down, wait a second or two before I ask with my hands. I want to feel this horse slow down and get collected by sitting down, and then I'll stop him by applying pressure on the reins. Now, every horse is a little different. Some horses require a little more pull, and some horses require less. Using what I'm talking about, being light-handed and being slow with your hands, will help maintain your horse. A lot of people will say, when I got this horse, he was pretty light in the mouth, but the more I've ridden him, 3 or 4 months later, he feels like I need more bit, I need more control. Well, hands are important. If you are abusive with your hands, your horse is going to get tough mouth. If you're light and quiet with your hands, your horse can maintain or even improve. And one way I like to do that is in my slow work using a practice bit. I feel like that's very important. Thank you for watching today.